Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company on the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Again, they are a great presenting sponsor of our program. Loaded show today. Belvis says smash the like button. I agree. TDG, of course. Hit the like button on the way in, good people. I was actually telling a story about TDG. I don't even remember what story it was. I was telling a story this weekend to Lindsay about TDG, and I was like, so TDG from the YouTube chat, and Lindsay was like, oh, I know who TDG is. So TDG, you're famous in our family. We are loaded today. So I have seen all of the whining and crying about this program. Chris, this week, can we talk about Tate? People on Twitter, this week, can we talk Titans? Can we this? Can we that? So, with all of that, in fact, one person says, loaded show today and full of Vrabel BS. Let me say this. We are going to do Titans before we do Vrabel. But we will do Vrabel today. And you people, I have to get on when it comes to the Titans. But first, I want to have a discussion with the audience today. And this is not just an audience watching in live time discussion, but this is a discussion I want to have with people that watch on their own time on the podcast. You can tweet me. You can comment down below. You can, I think there's a way with Spotify. You can comment on the podcast. Go ahead and whatever you want. I'll read all the messages, I promise. But I do want to have a discussion about this show. First, though, I do want to tell you about the presenting sponsor of this program. That is Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. You know Hiller. They take great care of my home. That's right. Hiller can take great care of your home, too. Let them do it. Anytime there's an issue, it's a right to happyhiller.com. I schedule it right away. In fact, there's very rarely an issue now because when I first moved in, Hiller came in, made sure everything was good. That's why I'm a member of the Happy Hiller Club. I absolutely love Hiller. They take great care of my home, and they can do the exact same for you. Happy you will be, or the service is free. If there is something that is not right with the job that Hiller performs, they will make it right. Learn more by going online to happyhiller.com. Again, that is where I book for my own home, and you can do the exact same. That's happyhiller.com. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today. So I am going to keep this first segment today at about 5 minutes. I don't want to go too long. But I want your opinion. So, the VrabelGate story as of tomorrow will officially be 1 month old. I have been looking at all the data and all the analytics and all the information and everything else, and this has been an absolute goldmine for this program and for me personally. In fact, let me pull it up right now. On Twitter, in the last month, I have gotten, I think it was like 7 million impressions in the last month. Let's see where we're at impressions-wise. Overview, audience. This should come up a lot quicker than it has, which I'm a little disappointed by. Oh, here we go. 7.2 million impressions over the last month, which is a lot for us. And on YouTube, tons of views. And look at the YouTube. We'll do this thing in what's called YouTube Studio. They'll show you what channels the people that watch your channel are also watching. When I first started this, it was all local Nashville stuff. It was 104.5 The Zone, 102.5 The Game, A to Z Sports, Tic Tac Titan. Now, if you look at who's watching this program, it's people who watch the NFL on NBC, 98.5 The Sports Hub in Boston, which is the best local radio station in America, the Craig Carton Show, Fox Sports Radio. And I'm not saying that, hey, we're going to take this show national or whatever we're going to do. I just want everybody's opinion about the future of this program. And that is, when I started this program, Braden Gall and 440 Sports, Braden had been trying to get me for probably a couple years to leave the radio station and to come over to 440. And when I ended up breaking up with the radio station, I really should say when the radio station broke up with me, because I wanted a new contract, there was a part of me that didn't exactly know what was next. You know, the great Mike Vrabel used to say, Vrabel did say this and I did take it to heart. If you worry about the job you don't have, you won't do the job that you currently have. And so I was always focused on the next show, the next day. Yeah, like I had talks with other people about jobs and things like that, but it wasn't like I was chasing my next job. Because, again, I was doing the job that I had. And so it was right before football season, and I go into the digital space, and it's like, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to do the same show that I did 4 hours every day on the radio, just do it without a radio signal? I don't know. Am I going to do a national show that will attract a bigger audience? I don't know. Am I going to do a Jared-specific show? And the answer to all of this was I didn't know. Like, I didn't know what our next move was going to be. And I say we, I'm talking about me and you, the audience, still Billy Nation, which we did not have a name for at the time. So here's my question. Going forward, what exactly do you want out of this program? Do you want it to be daily Titans talk, Nashville talk? And of course, we're going to hit the Titans all the time because it's my team. And I love that team. But are you guys cool if we go more big picture football, more big picture NFL? Do you want more of a Jared theme show? You know, for instance, I was thinking about talking. There was a question I wanted to ask Caroline. That was more of like a question that I would just ask her in general, but why not do it on the pod? But it doesn't really have anything to do with Nashville sports. Do you guys want more of that? What do you want out of this show going forward? And I'm going to try to find the best niche for us that will allow the program to continue to grow while still it being me. Like when I'm on Sirius XM and that really is a national show and I am talking Dallas Cowboys and I am talking Aaron Rodgers and that feels like I'm trying to do a national show. If I was doing local radio today, we'd be talking about the fact that Carnell Tate didn't perform at rookie minicamp for 3 of 4 hours. So I would say, you guys tell me what you think we should do. This is not going to be an only Mike Vrabel all the time story because this story is eventually going to end. And I hope the people that have joined us through the VrabelGate saga are not leaving us. So put it down in the bottom. Give me your chat. Give me your thought. And I will kind of review and we'll go from there. That's the first topic. Topic number 2. I am starting on the Titans. So, this weekend was the rookie mini camp. And let me say this. Today, when I was putting together the grid for this show, I was so happy with the fact that I'm not on local radio anymore. That it is not 4 hours of quantity on May 4th to try to get through the entire summer. May, June. Now, there will be the World Cup in June, and I think people both locally and across the country will care about the World Cup. July. August is training camp. That usually is where we start to get some good stories. And then finally, thank God, football season. And if I was doing local radio, one thing I always talked about when you were doing local radio is you're filling the same 4 hours every day. The Titans could have fired the coach yesterday. And it's much easier to fill 4 hours then than it is to fill 4 hours when rookie minicamp was this past weekend and none of the draft picks practiced. And the reason why I am so freaking glad that this is not a 4-hour show is because I couldn't give a shit about Robert Saleh not practicing the rookie draft picks. I saw a bunch of people, again, putting out there, Robert Saleh making a mistake. Let's break it down. Our show goes live. Let's talk Robert Saleh, big decision, bad decision. Robert Saleh not practicing the rookies. Jet fans say that he hasn't learned a thing since he was the head coach of the Jets. Oh, my God. Who cares? It's rookie minicamp. They had 58 tryout players. Those guys are going 100% trying to earn a spot on a 90-man roster. Not trying to earn a spot on a 53-man roster, a 90-man roster. Now, every now and then you find a Malcolm Butler there. But again, who gives a shit? This is the biggest non-story I can remember in a long time. And I didn't listen to local radio today, but I'm just going to make the assumption when it comes to local Nashville radio, there was a lot of belly aching about, oh my God, why didn't they practice the rookies? Or good thing they didn't practice the rookies. And I don't care one way or another. It's not like Cam Ward was throwing the ball, so Carnell Tate was going to miss those reps. What it was rookie orientation. This is how you wear your socks. This is how you wear your shoes. And if you think that that's funny, by the way, first practice, UCLA basketball, every year, that's what John Wooden would teach those players how to do. How to put on your socks, how to put on your shoes. And when it comes to the whole thing about rookie minicamp, the coach talked, the coordinators talked, the local daily beat guys had to go there, and they asked the questions, Carnell Tate, how did you pick your number? And I'm sure some people do care about that. I don't. I don't care what the coaches say. I don't care what the players say. This is all a complete waste of time. Everything Robert Saleh says, you people out there will say is golden. It's scripture. It's gospel. The Jet fans out there will say, oh, Saleh, he's so stupid. Robert Saleh right now is in the honeymoon benefit of the doubt period. Same with the coordinators. Anything Brian Dable tells you, you'll like. Anything Gus Bradley tells you, you'll like. I'm sure Indy Ben is probably watching the show right now. And when it comes to Indy Ben, you tell me what you think of Gus Bradley, who used to be the defensive coordinator in Indianapolis. You probably don't think he's very good. And, I mean, when it comes to me, I would say with Saleh and Bradley and Dable, we are in the evaluation period, the data collection period. I may call this the benefit of the doubt period. For you people, again, not all you people, but you people, it's pretending like Robert Saleh is Vince Lombardi period. And every coach gets it. Callahan got it. Remember, he was supposed to be so much better than Big Bad Vrabel. Yeah. Remember when Vrabel got that honeymoon period? Good to great. Leader of men. Now, Mike Malarkey didn't really get that honeymoon period because the fans didn't like him because apparently he wasn't good in Buffalo or Jacksonville, even though they weren't paying attention. Even though Mike Malarkey's record was basically the exact same as Robert Saleh's now, for some reason he didn't get that honeymoon period. But everybody else gets that honeymoon period. So Robert Saleh will get up there at the podium and he'll say, I don't want to practice the rookies because I'm afraid of them getting hurt. And some of you people out there will say, Coach is so smart. Coach, he sees it before it happens. Saleh and Dable, these guys, they know everything. They are geniuses. I haven't seen anything that would make me think that. But it hasn't been long enough for me to question every move they make or think they're complete bozos either. So, again, having to decipher a press conference that happened at rookie minicamp where none of the rookies played, no thank you. No thank you. As far as that is concerned. Oh, my God, they didn't practice the rookies. Who gives a shit? I mean, I couldn't care less. And I'm not saying I would pretend to care, but it would be 4 hours of me telling you that I didn't care. And I don't need to do that. See, now it's done. Difference between digital and radio. And then there was this other story. The media, I don't know if you guys saw this. The media got all pissed off because the Titans have changed where the media can stand during practice. I was on the phone today with somebody in the media about something different. I said, so where can you stand as compared to where you could stand? And my understanding of where you're allowed to be standing is that if there's 3 fields, and I think they're working on one of those fields. I think it's the middle field they're working on. I don't know. So there's a far field, there's a near field, and there's a middle field. Supposedly, you can only stand by the near field, so if they're on the far field, you won't necessarily be able to see it. Whereas in the past, we'd walk all the way out to the other side and we'd be able to see what's happening on the far field. I don't really care. I go to like 6 training camp practices, and that's about it. So what am I going to miss? I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go. I understand why the local media is pissed about this. And I'll just say this when it comes to the Titans. Maybe win some games first and then worry about where the media stands. Because right now the Titans don't have a right guard. They don't have a center. And I just think the Titans have proven over the years that as an organization, they can't multitask very well. In fact, they had to admit to us 2 years ago that they could not multitask very well as an organization when they said, we want the GM to worry about the players and the coaches, and we want Chad Brinker, this genius from business school, we want Chad Brinker to worry about the media and worry about the field turf and worry about IT and security and facilities and everything else. Even though other teams have one general manager who handles all of that, they needed Brinker to handle that because they were ahead of the game. And in each of the last 2 years, they've won 3 games. And Brinker's gone. Now, a lot of people in the local media seem to be very upset about this. They seem to think that what the Titans are doing is they want close-up, great footage that they can put on their YouTube, their Twitter, their TikTok, their Instagram, their website. And so you can't see that stuff on News 2 or Channel 4 or News Channel 5 or Fox 17 or anybody else because we want it. It's ours. We want to disseminate the practice footage the way that we want it out there, and we want the money that comes with that because there is money in views. And I have to ask, where is that discussion being had? When they're talking about where the media is going to go, and all the PR people are there, and the coaches there, and the general manager's there, and they're saying, okay, right here on this field, we want these people here. Right here on this field, we don't want anybody here. Right here on this one, we don't want any. Who is in there saying, well, if our YouTube page can get 1 million views a month, we'll make, $8 grand. If you can get 1 million views a month, we can make an extra $8,000 for an organization that is part of a league that sells games for millions upon millions of dollars. You want to save that money? Don't sign Andre Dillard. Don't keep hiring morons like Chad Brinker and Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan and then firing them and having to pay them. I need you as an organization to start paying attention to shit that matters. I do not care about where the media stands or doesn't stand. That doesn't bother me. It is the principle of the fact that the Titans, and they've been doing this for like the last 5 years, worry about the most insignificant shit as an organization. You can say a lot of things about J-Rob and Vrabel, and they fucked up a lot of things. Make no mistake about it. I don't think J-Rob and Vrabel were ever so worried about such useless horse crap. And yet, this Chad Brinker era, which I thought was over, but it feels like just an extension of it, with, we got to bring in new PR people. We got to bring in new video people. We got to bring in new security people. We got to bring in our own people. They keep wasting time. And here's the one thing that I'll say, which again, I think points to the Titans' incompetence as an organization. And I'm just being straight when it comes to the reality here. There are how many people in the local Nashville media that are on your asses? 2, maybe 3. Me, Kaharski, and maybe Buck. Outside of that, everybody else, this is Nashville, Tennessee. Everybody else, for the most part, I think is very gracious in their coverage of the team. Now, that doesn't mean that I think they're all a bunch of local homers. But what it does mean is I do think you've got it pretty easy here in Nashville compared to, say, I don't know, New York, where Robert Saleh and Brian Dable just came from, where there's 18 different papers and there's 19 different radio stations and every Tom, Dick, and Harry is at practice every day, and it's a different vibe. And the media gives you the benefit of the doubt with pretty much everything around here. And you're going to go out of your way on your first day on the job to go piss them off? I just think that's bad business. So as far as the local media actually being upset about where they stand, I don't totally understand where it means they can stand or not stand. I'm not sure I totally give a shit. But at the same time, if Gentry Estes is mad enough about it to write a column, and he's a pretty fair columnist, if he's mad enough about it to write a column, that's pretty revealing. I made a joke on Twitter. I said, what's going to help us beat the Falcons this year? Coach, I think keeping Teresa Walker an extra 50 feet away, I think that's going to make the difference this year. Forget about right guard and center. That is our X factor this year. And again, I'm joking because I don't think it matters. But I do think this is a clown show organization that majors in the minors. Every fucking time. They just major in the minors. Let's be worried about who's streaming press conferences. I'd be worried about getting a first down or sacking the quarterback. It's such a clown show. This is why Mike Keith is not calling the games anymore, is because of how much of a clown show this thing has become. So, again, do I really care about where the media stands at practice? Not really. Do I think it's a big deal? Not really. I think it's a thing that 1% of people maybe cares about, but I do think it's indicative that as an organization, you people at the Tennessee Titans can just be so stupid. So that is kind of the first rookie minicamp thing, which I tried not to go so long on because I'm about to go a lot longer. And that is my second thing. The great Mike Borgonzi. What? If you are a fan of another team, and we talked last week about how we have fans of other teams that are now watching the show, you think it's crazy. You've probably never even heard of Mike Borgonzi. He used to be the assistant general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs. He's now the general manager of the Titans. 1 year on the job. They were 3-14 last year. So over the weekend, the For You Twitter algorithms, boy, they know how to play me like a fiddle. And they got me. This is one tweet, but I saw a handful of tweets in which people are ready to just anoint Mike Borgonzi the king of the Tennessee Titans. This comes from Howie the Titan, who said Borgonzi's drafts are projecting to be as good or better than John Robinson's first 2 seasons of drafts. Saleh has pulled in a coaching staff under him that is more qualified and successful than Mike Vrabel's coaching staffs in Tennessee. I foresee a big jump for the Titans and wins this season. The future looks very bright. And there are so many people that are like, yes. I saw one person last week put something out there when it came to Borgonzi, who said, I don't care that Chad Brinker's gone because Mike Borgonzi is building a Super Bowl team. And I'm like, oh my God. You people. So again, the tweet said, his drafts are projecting to be as good or better than John Robinson's first 2 drafts. John Robinson had 3 All-Pros in his first draft. And I know every time I bring that up, people think that what I'm doing is I'm saying like, John Robinson was so good. And I think John Robinson was good. I don't think he was so good. I think he was good. But I'm not. I'm talking about facts. Mike Borgonzi's first 2 drafts project to be as good as John Robinson's. Who are the 3 All-Pros that Mike Borgonzi drafted last year? Because Jack Conklin was an All-Pro. Derrick Henry was an All-Pro. Kevin Byard was an All-Pro. Who is projecting as an All-Pro? Well, Chim Dike was an All-Pro. Okay, as a punt returner, which again is a special teams position, and I don't think it counts as much as right tackle. But fine. You get 1 All-Pro. Who else? Who else looks like an all-pro? And can we have a talk when it comes to the great Mike Borgonzi and the Super Bowl roster he's building? What are you basing that on? He's already had a year on the job. And his first year on the job was not a good first year. And this is a fact. This is not my opinion. This is reality. His first year on the job gave the Titans the worst quarterback in the NFL, according to QBR. If you're looking at the stream, you can see Jacoby Brissett, 24, Joe Flacco, 25, Tua Tagovailoa, 26, Geno Smith, 27, Cam Ward, 28. Dead last. According to PFF, Cam, second worst quarterback as far as grade is concerned. CJ Stroud, 31, Tua, 32, JJ McCarthy, 33, Geno Smith, 34, Michael Penix, 35, Cam Ward, 36. Hey, congratulations. He's ahead of Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. Way to go, Cam. So that's your quarterback. Again, I didn't make these numbers up. Those are real. They were 3-14 last season. That's real. Again, Bill Parcells used to say you are what your record says you are. So what is the deal here? And people turn this into a topic about me or a story about me. And they just say, Jared Stillman's a hater. It's only been 1 year, Jared. I don't disagree. And I'm not saying Mike Borgonzi is a bad general manager. I've never said that. But you're telling me that his first draft is projecting to be as good or better than John Robinson's when John Robinson had 3 all-pros in that first draft? Well, only Jack Conklin was an all-pro after the first year. Okay, so he hit it on the first pick. And then the second round pick is going to the Hall of Fame. You know the end result of what John Robinson's first draft class ended up being. So who in Mike Borgonzi's first draft class, after watching last season, are you convinced is going to the Hall of Fame? Kevin Byard might actually end up going to the Hall of Fame. I don't think he will. But if he leads the NFL in interceptions for another year or two, he might. Who in this draft class projects to be Kevin Byard? So I just don't get it. I don't understand. I am all for hoping that Mike Borgonzi is the light at the end of the tunnel. And I certainly think he's better than the guy he replaced. But the guy he replaced was incompetent. And I've already seen some signs that give me a lot of reason to worry. The fact that the entire free agency and draft period was all about giving the coaches what they want. That's what Rand Carthon did with Brian Callahan. He gave him who he wanted. I don't think that works unless you want Robert Saleh to be the general manager. Unless you want Bill Callahan to be the general manager. So, if I was a betting man here, I would bet against Mike Borgonzi. But I don't know how you can argue that his drafts are as good or are projecting to be as good as John Robinson's were at the beginning when John Robinson hit it out of the park in his first draft. Also, I don't know how much it matters. Wins and losses don't seem to matter to Titan fans. Mike Borgonzi's record as a general manager is 3-14. J-Rob was 9-7 his first year. They both inherited the worst team in the league with the number 1 pick. So, give me a break. So when I see, again, and it's not even about J-Rob. I don't care about J-Rob in this. I care about how you people take your pants off and pleasure yourself thinking about Mike Borgonzi when the guy is 3-14 and drafted a punt returner. Again, his number 1 pick was the worst quarterback in the NFL last year. Well, the coaches were no good, Jared. So now we've got good coaches. 20-36 Robert Saleh. I mean, I hope it works out with Saleh, but you have to admit, He had a high draft pick at quarterback in New York. How'd that work out for him? Not very good. So I'm not here to tell you that Mike Borgonzi is not going to be a good general manager. I have no fucking clue. Although what I've seen so far, I'm not impressed by. And I'm not just talking about wins and losses, but I'm talking about the way he defers to the coaches on every big decision he makes. But stop pretending like this guy has turned this team around. He hasn't done that yet. And if he does, good for him. But until then, let's stop pretending like he's doing something he hasn't done. So, that's the Titan stuff that I wanted to get out of the way. Again, I can't with some of you people. So, to Vrabel. And let me say this. When it comes to Vrabel, kudos to Inside the NBA. Finally, somebody at ESPN had the ability on television when people were watching to poke fun at and or mention the Mike Vrabel, Diana Rossini scandal. And of course, it was in the Going Fishing segment where they made fun of the Celtics, and they had Vrabel and Rossini going fishing with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Bill Simmons and Mark Wahlberg and whomever else, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck. And as they were going fishing, Vrabel and Rossini were doing the Jack and Rose from Titanic at the front of the boat. And they laughed and they joked, and Kenny and Charles, who's that? Ha, 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 ha. Can I just say, it's okay, ESPN. You can laugh. Joking about a scandal that everybody already knows about and that everybody is already talking about is much different than the reason that I think ESPN is afraid to bring up this topic no matter what. And that's because of what happened over 20 years ago with the TV show Playmakers. One is a scandal that the country can't stop talking about. The other was a choice to air a television drama which had an entire team full of drug users, domestic abusers, nightclub shooters, closeted receivers, and the subsequent homophobia that came from that. And so many unplanned pregnancies on the team, I lost count. And it pissed the NFL off so badly that they would air a television show that portrays teams in the league looking that way, and the NFL was angry and took it out on ABC and ESPN. That's different than there being a scandal that everybody already knows about and is already talking about and kind of embracing how funny it is or how much people enjoy it. It's okay, ESPN. But then that does take me to Vrabel. And that does take me to wondering how the NFL is going to react to all of this. Now, Roger Goodell was asked about this briefly at the draft by Mike Greenberg, and Goodell pointed out that Vrabel wasn't under any trouble or investigation with the personal conduct policy. This issue is a team issue. This is not a league issue. And I'm okay with that. I know people in Philadelphia will say things like, he tampered, but that's not really what tampering is. And on top of it, I know people across the NFL will say things like, well, Diana voted on AP awards. That's the AP's issue. That's not Roger Goodell. That's not Park Avenue. That's not the NFL's. But when it does come to Vrabel, I don't think anybody really knows how the NFL feels. I'm convinced the NFL doesn't give a shit. That if Colin Cowherd and Nick Wright wanted to talk about this all day on Fox, Robert Kraft might get upset about it. But the idea of the NFL being so upset that they would say, no Cowboys games for you, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the NFL is going to punish Sunday Night Football because Mike Florio's talking about it on his show every day. I don't think if ESPN were to talk about the Vrabel-Rossini fallout more than the uncomfortable 3 minutes Rich Eisen did on the Friday of the draft, where he about pissed his pants talking about how he didn't want to talk about this topic or First Take didn't want to talk about this topic, if they just actually discussed it, I don't think the NFL would care. This is a scandal everybody is talking about. I think the reason Florio is the one national guy that is really hammering at this is because he's the one guy who manages a website. So he sees what everybody's talking about. He sees the numbers. I don't think Cowherd sees the numbers on how much everybody's talking about this compared to everything else. But when I talk about wondering how the NFL is going to react to this, for me, it comes to how they treat Vrabel with the schedule. And I thought about that when I was reading The Athletic. I've always told you, Mike Sando, after the draft, after free agent periods, after the player acquisition periods, Mike Sando at The Athletic has a column where he talks to executives inside the NFL, grants them anonymity, and he says, okay, you go ahead, you tell me, we're not going to use your name, be blunt. What do you think about what this team did in free agency? What do you think about what that team did in free agency? What do you think about what they did in the draft? Kind of spill it. And last Friday, Sando dropped the piece in The Athletic when it came to Vrabel and the Patriots about their draft. And guess what the executives in the NFL want to talk about too? Vrabel. And there was one executive in particular that kind of brought up the dichotomy of last season, what this season is going to look like, and how the Vrabel scandal plays into that. Quote, they overachieved last season against a historically easy schedule. Vrabel wins Coach of the Year. They beat a backup quarterback on the road and go to the Super Bowl. They get demolished in the Super Bowl, one exec said. But everyone comes out of there feeling like they got the coach and the quarterback, and they're ahead of things. And that even kind of includes me. The executive continued. And now they play a first-place schedule. They play the NFC North. Buffalo could be better. And they're bound to make some coaching-related mistakes, which naturally occur. And now people are saying the coach is not all in. He's not focused. This took a toll. While that may or may not be true, that's going to be the perception. So it's really going to be tough for him this year. And I heard that and I thought, oh my God, the NFL has the ability to either help Vrabel, hurt Vrabel, or stay out of it. If you talk to the NFL, obviously they're going to say they're staying out of it. But we've seen this with the NFL. When the NFL gets upset, if they feel like you're hurting the shield, they will go out of their way to make sure that you know about it. And how they build that Patriots schedule is going to be massive. If the Patriots start off 5-1, and then they start playing better teams, and now all of a sudden they're 5-3 or 5-4, nobody in October and November is going to say, well, the Diana Rossini scandal was the problem. Because it wasn't the problem in September when they started off 5-1. I do say this. I mean, going back to Vrabel in 2022 here, they traded away A.J. Brown. They lost the last 7 games. Everybody said it was because they traded away A.J. Brown. Even though they started off 7-3, I still have a hard time understanding that, but I guess I'm just not smart enough. But again, if they start off 5-1, everyone's already going to have the opinion and the narrative of, oh, Vrabel, that was all off the field. They put that behind them. They rallied around the coach, whatever. Now they're 5-4. It had nothing to do with it. If they start off 2-6, that will be the discussion. And that's what this executive is saying. Now, I talked about this last week, about Vrabel going to counseling on day 3 of the draft. And how all the capital J journos like Mike Reese out there, they're saying, this story is beneath me. This is off the field. This has nothing to do with the Patriots. I don't want to talk about it. But once you miss day 3 of the draft, it's very clear that this is affecting football. It's very clear that it's a distraction. When you have to hold multiple press conferences, it's a distraction. And so there's no way to say that it's not, at least right now. I mean, Albert Breer is saying Vrabel's walking around that facility right now. He's not the same guy. So as that executive points out, if they go into the season and they make some coaching-related mistakes, which are bound to happen, after they had the historically easy schedule last year, the unbelievable road to the Super Bowl. They played a Charger team that didn't have an offensive line. They played C.J. Stroud, who kept crapping the ball out of his ass. They played Jarrett Stidham in the AFC Championship game. If you think it's going to be that easy this year, they got another thing coming to them. And that is a perception that if things don't go well at the beginning, that I believe people are going to have. Now, if the Patriots don't start out well, I'll argue it's because they're playing better teams. But I think there's going to be a lot of people that will believe that this is about Vrabel and being distracted and Rossini. In fact, let's put up their opponents. And this is how the NFL can pick how they want to handle the VrabelGate saga. On one hand, they could be very kind to Vrabel. They could do him a favor. They could scratch his back. And they could load up the schedule early on with teams that they should beat in situations that they should win. If they're very upset because the story of Mike Vrabel's extramarital affair overtook the crown offseason event of the league, the NFL draft, they could pummel Vrabel. Let's go through the schedule. Again, they play Buffalo twice, the Jets twice, Miami twice. Buffalo should be good. The Jets have Geno Smith at quarterback. Miami, I think, is tanking. So you can't change that, but those are the three division games. Chicago, pretty good. Kansas City, if Mahomes plays, pretty good. Detroit, pretty good. Didn't make the playoffs last year, but I think we all think Detroit's pretty good. Jacksonville made the playoffs last year. Chargers in LA. Dolphins, Jets, Super Bowl champion Seahawks. Home, Denver, played them in the AFC Championship game. Green Bay made the playoffs. Raiders suck. And then, again, the Vikings and the Steelers, who knows? If they're mad at Vrabel, they could stack this up with week 1, Sunday Night Football at home or on the road at Buffalo. Buffalo is going to get a primetime game. They are going to get a primetime game for their first game at Highmark Stadium. It's going to be loud. It's going to be raucous. It's going to be crazy. Sunday Night Football, week 1, Patriots at Bills. It should be noted, the expectation, just from people I've talked to, is that the NFL is going to kick off this year. We all know it's going to be a Wednesday game instead of a Thursday game. The expectation I'm hearing is that it's going to be Chicago at Seattle is going to be the kickoff game. Then the next day will be the Rams and the 49ers in Australia for that international Fakakta kickoff game. And then it'll go to your regular week. Sunday Night Football, Patriots, Bills. That's a good Sunday Night Football game. If the NFL wants to shove it to Vrabel, that's what you do. If the NFL wants to protect Vrabel, then let's open up at noon on CBS against Miami. And that game has to be at home because the Patriots cannot travel to Miami in September. Week 2 at the Jets. They should be 2-0. Week 3 at home against the Steelers. Pittsburgh, I think, is a very team. But you can play Steelers, Patriots in primetime. Week 4, Vegas at home. New England should be 4-0 with that schedule. Again, if they're pissed at Vrabel, they could start them on the road at Buffalo. Week 2 at home against Chicago, who would be coming off of extra rest having played on Wednesday night to start the season. Week 3 at Miami in September. You'd be lucky to be 1-2 coming out of that. The NFL knows how this works. So how they schedule the Patriots this year, I think, is going to be a tell. as to how the league actually feels about what Vrabel did and Rossini and everything else. If they are legitimately angry about this, you will see the Patriots get porked on the front end of the schedule. If they're totally cool with it and they want to give Vrabel a pass, they will front load the schedule with easy teams. So that instead of having to play at Buffalo or having to play Chicago with an extended break or having to play Denver at home early on, they'll get those games against the Dolphins and the Jets out of the way. Pittsburgh, Minnesota, Vegas, new quarterbacks. And so that's what I'm keeping my eye on. Because, again, one of the league's biggest partners is ESPN. They own 10% of that network. And that network is petrified of talking about Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini. Again, it was so noteworthy last night that Inside the NBA threw up a graphic with Vrabel and Rossini on it, technically on ESPN. ESPN licenses Inside the NBA from TNT. And it was so noteworthy that everybody wrote stories about it. Ryan Glasspiegel wrote a story at Front Office Sports. Mike Florio wrote a story at Pro Football Talk. Awful Announcing had a story. People could not believe it. Oh, my God, ESPN Inside the NBA cracked on Vrabel and Rossini. And it's because, for the most part, the places where you would go if you wanted to hear real ESPN opinions, Stephen A., very quiet about this. Now, Stephen A's been on his Sirius XM show, and he's gone nuts about Vrabel and Rossini, but not on ESPN. McAfee. You know, I was talking about this. I don't know if this was before the VrabelGate story or after the VrabelGate story, but everybody's trying to figure out where sports broadcasting is at this point in time. And I'm one of those people, by the way, that's trying to figure out where this is going, what's next, what the trends are, what people are doing, what I should be doing, etc. But I kept telling people, because they kept putting these shows on national radio that never worked. Clinton Yates never worked, and it was never going to work. Michelle Beadle and Cody Decker had it. It didn't work. And when it came to those shows, I kept saying, what everybody needs to emulate is they need to emulate McAfee. Now, I'm not talking about what McAfee is right now. I'm talking about the old McAfee, where it was McAfee, A.J. Hawk, and McAfee's cast of characters. And they would sit there for 3 hours, and they would have a lot of energy, and they would talk about football. And they would talk about football 365. Since McAfee has gone to ESPN, there's been less football talk, more ESPN guests. Let's bring on this NBA analyst. Let's talk NBA. Let's do this. Let's do that. And it's not the same show. I used to love McAfee pre-ESPN. McAfee now, I find it to be rather boring. I find it to be rather stale compared to what McAfee used to be. The point I'm making is McAfee was high energy, McAfee was football, and McAfee had the in with Aaron Rodgers. So he would get that Aaron Rodgers interview, and you'd have to tune to McAfee because at that point in time, Aaron Rodgers was the defending two-time MVP in the league, and everybody wanted to know what he was thinking, what he was doing, where he was going to go, who he was going to play for. But now, McAfee will not touch Vrabel Rossini with a 10-foot pole. And I have my own theories as to why McAfee won't do it. I think McAfee's friends with Vrabel, doesn't want to piss him off. I think McAfee's friends with Rossini, doesn't want to piss her off. I think a lot of people are friends with Vrabel, don't want to piss him off, or friends with Rossini. They feel bad for her. They don't want to crap on her or bring the story up and make it feel like they're crapping on her. But I also think when it comes to ESPN, they are so afraid of what happened during that playmaker year. They are so afraid of the NFL getting upset about this. And again, I don't think the NFL really cares, but they're so afraid of it that they are so afraid of ESPN looking at the schedule or the NFL looking at the schedule and looking at Monday Night Football with the Super Bowl this year on ESPN and the NFL saying, let's give them the Texans and Carolina. We could have given you the Packers and the Eagles, but instead we're going to give you the Texans and Carolina. And that's why I think they're afraid. That's why I think ESPN won't touch this. And that's why it was so newsworthy that Inside the NBA would touch it. And I do think ESPN has plausible deniability that that is a TNT show that is licensed by ESPN as part of a deal with the NBA, which is what that was. So kudos to Inside the NBA. If anybody was going to have the balls to talk about this on ESPN, it was going to be Inside the NBA. Let's get to your reaction here today on the program. Belvis says, VrabelGate, will we ever hear from Diana Rossini? So I don't know the answer to this. I don't know Diana. Diana and I have interacted a couple of times. She's always been nice to me. Diana had a very cordial personality, very bubbly, very energetic. I mean, again, I only talked to her like twice. Once was really awkward after the CJ Stroud draft night thing at joint practices with the Vikings, where Diana was like, why don't you have me on your show? And I said it without saying it, but it's like, because if I have you on the show, then I have to ask you, are you fucking the coach? Which isn't what I said. I said, it just sounds like you're in the bag for Vrabel. And she's like, Diana said, and people around the league say he's a great coach, and people around the league believe it. I'm like, okay, Diana. But, whatever. So when is Diana going to make an appearance? I think Diana has two separate choices. This is a fork in the road. According to the Daily Mail, Diana is shell-shocked. She's thinking about her family, and she's pondering her next step, all of which she should be doing. There is no rush for Diana to get back in the game right away. But here's the fork in the road Diana Rossini's at. On one side of this, she goes all in. Full Linda Tripp, Monica Lewinsky. She writes a book. She sits down with Oprah. She talks to Alex Cooper, etc. And just lays it out there. The other side of it, she doesn't say shit. I think what's going to happen is I think she isn't going to say shit. And the reason why I think she's not going to say shit is because I think they will make it worth her while. They perhaps being the league, they perhaps being an owner, I think they will make it worth her while not to have the tell-all moment with Oprah. Not to write the book. Where if it came out today, HarperCollins, Diana she's more of a photojournalist than she is a writer. She was on television as a reporter before she became a reporter for the New York Times, but I guess technically Diana is a writer. If HarperCollins, which would be ironic because I believe they're owned by the same people that own the New York Post, but if HarperCollins offered her a $5 million advance to write a tell-all book, she could have that baby out in 2 weeks. And so she could have that thing out tomorrow. And if she did, I'd buy it. But I think Diana's going to stay out of that. So I would say I don't think we're going to hear from her. When you're saying, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? When are we going to hear from Diana? I don't know if we're ever going to hear from Diana about this, or at least hear from it the way you want to hear from it. Kelsey says, I didn't realize the schedule was made this late in the year. I learned something new today. Apparently, the league is there was a conversation on some Bears podcast, Mike North, who goes and does interviews every year right after the schedule comes out. He's the vice president of broadcasting. There's a ESPN short about how they make the schedule. There's a giant board in his office where they build out the schedule. He says this year, it's usually around May 11th is when the schedule comes out. He says this year it may be closer to May 19th. I think if I was reading the Pro Football Focus or Pro Football Talk story correctly, it's because they sold a 5-game package to YouTube. So they're going to try to work that in there, which I do buy that. I know a lot of people out there don't buy those. I do buy it. That I think that they are building a package that they can sell to YouTube, that it's not, hey, let's wait to see the fallout of Vrabel and Rossini before we decide where we're going to place the Patriots and how we're going to do this. But it being this late does give them the ability that if Vrabel's their guy, if Vrabel's our friend, then they might not schedule Buffalo, New England, New Highmark Stadium, Week 1 Sunday Night Football. So that if the Patriots get killed in that game by Buffalo, playing their first game at their new stadium with their MVP caliber quarterback, that the story afterwards is not Vrabel has lost his focus and the Patriots have lost their way. I think there may be something to that. Kevin says, the same people that love talking about Belichick and his girlfriend, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, they love off-the-field relationships until it gets too close to home. I brought this up last week, this Brendan Sorsby story. Now, I think this is a real football story, and I do want to dive into this at some point, because if I'm the Arizona Cardinals and Brendan Sorsby is ineligible to play college football this upcoming season because he has a gambling problem and he goes to rehab and he gets it worked out, and Brendan Sorsby enters the supplemental draft, I'll use a second-round pick. If he's as good as they say he is, which they say that if Sorsby had come out, he would have gone in the top 5 picks this previous draft, that he's a better prospect than Ty Simpson. I don't know. I didn't watch Cincinnati football, so I couldn't tell you. But if he is that good, and I'm the Arizona Cardinals, or I'm the New York Jets, or I'm one of these teams, I may burn a second-round pick in next year's draft, which is how the supplemental draft works. If you put in a second-round claim on somebody and you end up getting him, you lose next year's second-rounder. I may do that to get this young quarterback in there. Now, I know that Arizona drafted Carson Beck, and the Jets drafted the Scarbini, Cade Klubnik, but I do think that, but again, the reason I bring this up, you can't tell me that that story's not about his personal life, but then tell me Vrabel and Rossini is about their personal lives. I mean, one guy has a gambling addiction. The other people are having an affair. What's the difference between the two? If Johnny Joe down the street has a gambling addiction, that's none of your fucking business. Just like if somebody's having an affair and cheating on their wife. That's none of your business. But if it interferes with work, and since Vrabel's affair was taking place at work, to me, that is not a personal story anymore. That's not off limits. Same with Sorsby. It's not off limits to talk about his gambling problem. Did he bet on his team? If he did, that's a different discussion. Then, the guy was running 30 parlays a day. And I do think that we should put a rule in here when it comes to sports, where I believe if you play a sport, you can't bet on it. So if you play baseball, you can't bet on baseball. If you play basketball, you can't bet on basketball. If you play football, you can't bet on football. And if you bet on it, you're banned forever. The end. Oh, you bet on football? You play in the NFL? Bye. Oh, you bet on basketball? You play in the NBA? Bye. That's what I think the rule should be. Now, I don't think we can retroactively punish a 22-year-old because of that, but I do think that that's what the rule should be. Kevin asks if the schedule release may be pushed back because of VrabelGate. I don't think so. I think it is because of the YouTube 5-game package. The NFL got 5 games back that they could sell as part of their deal with ESPN. One person said, if Vrabel had any integrity, he would resign. So I did see, and this is going to be a topic, I believe, on tomorrow's show, Mike Florio came out and said that he thinks there is a non-zero chance that Vrabel is not the coach of the New England Patriots week 1 this season. I guess technically there's a non-zero chance of anything happening. I guess there's a non-zero chance that I could be a billionaire by the start of the NFL season. Not very likely, but hey, maybe my home is sitting on an oil well. I don't know. The reason I say that is because I don't think Vrabel's going anywhere. And when you say if Vrabel had integrity, he would resign, why? Think about everybody involved. Does Vrabel want to quit? No. Vrabel loves coaching. Vrabel loves the game. Vrabel doesn't want to quit. He loves football. He loves being the head coach. Do the New England Patriots not want Vrabel back? No. They want Mike Vrabel to be their coach. They were dog shit for a couple years with Bill Belichick. They were dog shit for 1 year with Gerard Mayo. They went to the Super Bowl last year with Mike Vrabel. They want Mike Vrabel to be their coach. Fans, owner, etc. Is it embarrassing? Sure. But everybody involved wants the same thing. I think the NFL wants Vrabel in the league as a head coach. I want Vrabel in the league as a head coach. It's a better league when Mike Vrabel is in it. So when it comes to Vrabel resigning, why would he do that? Why would he give up the money? Why would he give up the job? Why would the Patriots want him to resign? Other than, well, he cheated on his wife and a bunch of people are laughing about it and gossiping about it. That's what it is. You think you're better off with Joe Schmo as your head coach? I mean, let's be honest. I saw the Daily Mail story where they said that Kraft was eyeing Mike Tomlin, that if Vrabel couldn't be the coach, then maybe they'd go get Tomlin. Bullcrap. If Vrabel can't be the coach, McDaniels becomes the head coach. Do you really want that? Do they really want that? I'm sure Jet fans want that. But do you think Robert Kraft really wants Josh McDaniels to be his head coach over Mike Vrabel? Do you think the NFL really wants Josh McDaniels to be the head coach of the Patriots over Mike Vrabel? Do you think Mike Vrabel wants that? No. So Vrabel's going to be the coach. Jeffrey says, I bet New England gets an easy first 6 to 7 week schedule. Depends on how the NFL feels. Personally, I believe that when it comes to Vrabel, I believe that if this had never happened, the NFL would have given them a fair schedule at the beginning of the season. I think they would have played the first game on Sunday Night Football at Highmark Stadium because it's the new Highmark Stadium in Buffalo. It's New England. It's Buffalo. It's division rivals. It's Mike Vrabel. It's Drake May. It's Josh Allen. I think they would have played that game. And I'm okay with it because Buffalo's got a new coach, and I think that new coach might be a bozo. So I think that would have been their first game, but it's not like they would have played that first game and then played Seattle in week 2. They would have played that first game, then they would have played the Jets at home. Then they would have played somebody decent, Chicago. Then they would have played the Raiders. They would have evened it out. They weren't just going to load them up with hard teams. If they're mad at Vrabel, they're going to make his road the first 6 or 7 weeks very tough. If they're cool with Vrabel, you're going to see 2 Jet games and a Dolphins game in the first month. That's how it works. And I don't know what the NFL is going to do. Maddie says, Jared, as far as the show is concerned, you should do what feels right to you. You have good instincts about what Still Billy Nation enjoys listening to. If something interests you, chances are it interests us. Can I just say this, that, and again, I know a lot of people have come to this program because of the Vrabel stuff. I hope you stay. Again, I listen to Boston radio, not because I care about the Patriots or the Red Sox or the Bruins or the Celtics, but because when I was in New Hampshire, I listened to Boston radio and I just enjoy it. I enjoy listening to them bitch about the Boston teams more than I actually care about the Boston teams. The Celtics 76ers Game 7, that's the first Celtics game I watched all year. But I've listened to them bitch about Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum all year. And I'm cool with it. So I hope you people come back and say, hey, I like the fact that this guy's got energy. I like the fact that he tells it like it is. I like the fact that he's a huge football fan. And again, we're all figuring this out together. This show is not even a year old. This show is not even a year old, and we've got more views than a lot of people that had a much bigger head start on us, which is very, very cool. I do want to end the program today on this. I don't know if you saw this. This is very, very sad news. This morning, the New York Yankees announced that John Sterling, the voice of the New York Yankees, passed away a couple of years after he retired. Now, I'm not a Yankee fan, so it's not like I grew up listening to John Sterling, but I kind of did. And what I mean by that is the early days of baseball, like my dad, that era of baseball was all about the radio broadcast. The Jack Bucks, the Harry Careys, the Ernie Harwells, the Vin Scullys. If you want to go back even further, Red Barber, the radio guy that called the team's games. And people tell stories about, I remember sleeping with a transistor radio next to my bed, and I would fall asleep listening to the dulcet tones of whomever call the game. And radio was not as big of a deal in my era as far as baseball was concerned because my era was TV. I grew up on the guys that called the games on TV. I was a Braves fan. Skip Carey, Pete Van Wieren, Don Sutton, Joe Simpson. If you were a White Sox fan, it's Hawk Harrelson. If you were a Chicago Cubs fan, it was Harry Carey and Steve Stone. Then it was Chip Carey and Steve Stone. Joe Buck with the Cardinals, etc. But John Sterling, as the radio voice of the Yankees, called every single big Yankee game for one of the great eras of Yankee baseball. World Championships. Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, Jorge Posada, Bernie Williams, Andy Pettitte, Tino Martinez, Scott Brocious' home run. And when it comes to highlights, yes, there is the national call from Joe Buck and Tim McCarver. Yes, there is the national radio call. John Miller and Joe Morgan, who, by the way, I miss John Miller and Joe Morgan doing games on ESPN. I really do. But when we play highlights back, it's usually the local home team play-by-play call. And when you're as good as the Yankees were for most of my childhood, you're going to hear a lot of John Sterling. And I liked John Sterling. And A-Bob for A-Rod. It is high. It is far. It is gone. He sent a text message into the right field seats. You're on the mark, Teixeira. I used to love that stuff. Ball game over. Yankees win. The Yankees win. I mean, that's iconic for that era of baseball, and that era of baseball is the era that I grew up in. And so while, again, I didn't fall asleep listening to John Sterling, I very rarely listen to a full John Sterling play-by-play. I did used to get a kick out of Sterling and Susan Waldman. They were together for so long. They had so much respect for each other. But when you would listen to Sterling and Susan do a game, it was so funny because Sterling would just ramble on about whatever he was talking about. Then Susan would drop something in, and then Sterling would be right back to baseball. Derek steps in. He's a 1 for 3 in the ball game. And then Susan Waldman would say, you know, John, Derek switched his batting gloves last week. And I talked to Derek before the game, and I talked to Joe Torre. And they both said Derek's new batting gloves have really helped him see the field much better over the last couple of weeks. Pitch outside, ball one. And I used to always love that. But that you cannot tell the story of baseball without the John Sterling play-by-play calls. So to John Sterling, I salute him. Just like I felt the same way this morning when I heard the news about John Sterling that I felt years ago when Bob Shepard, the PA voice of Yankee Stadium, passed away. I had gone to a couple games at Yankee Stadium. I had heard Bob Shepard, and it was like, wow, that's Bob Shepard. And I feel the same way about John Sterling. It's a big part of my childhood watching SportsCenter and hearing John Sterling's calls. It is high. It is far. It is gone. An A-bomb for A-Rod. May he rest in peace. Stillman and company. We'll see you all tomorrow live at 2 o'clock.